All right, welcome everybody. This is lesson 910. It is the last section of chapter 9. It has very little to do with geometry. However, the reason that this lesson is plopped into the end of chapter 9 is it's a very good segue for some of the topics that we are going to do at the end. All right, so this particular problem-solving strategy, it's a problem-solving lesson. It's going to be called working backwards. Okay, and the strategy is really darn simple. You read through a word problem and you end up at something, and then to figure out, usually the question is going to ask where you started with, and what you're going to do is you're going to start from the ending point. You're just going to go backwards through the problem. You're going to do the opposite of everything that happened in the problem, and you're going to figure out what you started at. All right. So, I do have a couple of guests. You'll see a picture of most of them at the end. There is one mystery guest that you'll hear in the video. We are not going to say her name, but you will hear one mystery guest that will not be pictured. And as part of your daily quiz tomorrow, it will be to identify the mystery guest, the one that was not pictured. There will be 4 in a picture, plus and I will not be in the picture. So there's 4 6th grade Course 1 students that are in the picture, and then one mystery guest. Say hi, mystery guest.
Hi.
All right. So here we go. Let's get right into it. I've got a handwritten problem that we're going to start with. And so one of the guests is sitting right next to me. His name is Graham. And Graham got to have a fun weekend. He got to go out to Keeneland this weekend. And he went with a certain amount of money in his pocket. Okay? And basically he made a bunch of good bets. And he was able to triple his money.
Yep.
And so it might have been a couple of bets, it might have been a lot of bets, he maybe lost a little bit, gained a little bit, but at the end of the day, he had tripled the amount of money he took to Keeneland. He then decided that walking by the Turf Catering booth that it would be a really good idea to get one of those, bread puddings that only Turf Catering makes, the delicious ones. And I think they're about $5.50 or so, and then with tax and a little bit of change, which he dumped in the tip jar, he ended up spending $6 on the bread pudding. At the end of the day, Graham reaches into a pocket and realizes he has $12, which is more than he started the day with. The question that we're talking about, and the motivating example for this particular strategy, is to work backwards and figure out how much money Graham must have started the day with. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the amount of money he has at the end of the day. So he has at the end of the day $12 in his pocket. Now, what happened at the very end of the day, right before he left? What was the last thing he did at Keeneland?
He bought bread pudding.
He bought bread pudding, which cost him how much?
$6.
$6. So right before he brought the bread pudding, he had $6 more in his pocket. So how much did he have?
$18.
Okay, so we're going to add the 6. So when we go backwards, we're going to start at the end of the day, and we're going to work backwards, and we're going to do the opposite of everything. So instead of spending $6, Graham gets $6 back in his pocket. So right before he noticed the bread pudding, he had $18 in his pocket. Okay, now let's back up to the day of betting. If he ended up with $18 at the end of the day, what did we say about his money? What did he do with it? He tripled it. So what do we have to do? What's the opposite of tripling? Dividing by 3. So if we divide 18 by 3, $6 is how much he started the day. Now we never ever do one of these work backwards problems because we're working backwards and we're thinking backwards. It's really easy to make a mistake. So let's just run this all the way through the problem and see if it works. Graham goes to the track with $6 in his pocket. He makes some good bets. He triples his money. That gives him
$18.
18. He sees the bread pudding. He spends $6 on that. He ends up with 12, which matches what he ended up in his pocket. So does it check?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Okay. So Kevin, thank you very much. Molly, thank you very much. Lucy, thank you very much. And Graham, thank you very much. And mystery guest, thank you. There we go. All right. Now let's do a problem out of the book. Very similar idea. Suppose that I, as a teacher, start out with a big packet of pencils. Let's say we're doing ERBs, which we're going to be doing in a couple weeks. Okay, and I start out with this big packet of pencils. Okay, and I tell everybody to bring their number 2 pencils, which means most people do. But there's always some people that don't bring pencils, right? Yeah. So let's say there's 7 people when I'm giving out my ERBs that need a pencil. So I lend out 7 pencils. Okay. And then we take a bunch of ERBs, and then all of a sudden, people are handing them in, and some people have already gone to lunch, but some people haven't. And right before we go to lunch, I collect back 5 of the pencils I lent out. 2 of them seem to have ended up in people's pockets. But I do get 5 of them back. We come back from lunch and we sit down to do the ERBs. This time I remind people to go to their lockers and get their stinking pencils. And so this time, after lunch, when we sit down to do the ERBs, I only have to give out 3 pencils. Maybe it's a bit different class, or maybe the people went and got their own pencils out of their locker. But I only have to give out 3 after lunch. At the end of the day, notice I didn't collect any back. At the end of the day, I have 16 pencils. So the question is, how many pencils did the teacher, me, have at the start of the day? So we're going to do the same thing we just did. We're going to work backwards, and we're going to do the opposite. So how many do we end up with at the end of the day?
16.
16. Okay, what was the last thing I did right before?
Gave out 3 pencils.
I gave out 3. So how many? So instead of giving them out, I'm going to put those back in my stash. So I'm going to add 3. So right at lunchtime, while I was eating lunch, I was in possession of 19 pencils. Okay, while the people were taking the ERBs in the morning, how many pencils was I missing?
You were missing 2.
Well, the last thing I did right before lunch was collect 5. So what do I have to do?
Add 5.
No.
Minus
5. So while they're taking the test, I have 14 pencils in my desk.
Yeah.
All right. Now, at the beginning of the day, before I passed out 7 pencils, so I passed out 7 pencils, that would subtract from my supply.
So you have to add 7.
I have to add 7 to go back. And 14 plus 7 equals?
21.
So 21. We don't ever want to have a naked number. So we'll put pencils in here. Now, let's double check it. Let's run this back through the problem and see if it works. 21 pencils. I give out 7. I now have? 21, give out 7, I end up with 14, right? Okay, right before lunch, I collect 5 of them back. I now have 19 pencils. After lunch, I give away 3. Sorry, that's supposed to be a minus. Okay, I give away 3. I give away 3. I'm trying to give away 3. I give away 3, and I end up with 16 pencils. Is that how many I'm supposed to have at the end of the day?
Yes.
Yep. It sure is. Okay, so I worked backwards and I found that 21 pencils must have been how much I started with the day. And if I do that, I will end up with 16 pencils, which means that 5 of my pencils disappeared. And you can actually kind of account for those, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I gave out 7, collected 5, so 2 of them disappeared in the morning session. And then in the afternoon, after lunch, I gave away 3, but I never collected any back. So that's the 5 pencils I lost. So I started with 21, I ended up with 16. That is the strategy of working backwards. Does that make sense?
Is it a 3-step problem?
In this case, it's 3-step. Basically, however many steps I have going forwards through the problem, when I go backwards, I'm going to have to do that many steps. So if we took Graham's Keeneland and we broke it down much more specifically by every single race, you know, he doubled his money, then he lost half his money, then he got 4 times as much money. I mean, we could break it down, and then for every step that we do to his original money, it's one more step we have to undo going backwards. Okay? All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for the help. Again, as promised, here is a video of 4 of my 5 guests.
You will never guess me.
There we go. And we've got the beautiful daffodils provided by Miss McKinstry. And we've got Kevin sniffing the daffodils. We've got Molly just happy with life. We've got Lucy just kind of grinning. We've got Graham plotting his next diabolical act in his next class. And then we have the mystery guest. So, if you can figure out the mystery guest, it'll give you a bonus on the on your daily quiz tomorrow. So that'll give you the ability to get one question wrong. So, without further ado, we are signing off. Take care. Bye, everybody.